as you will know, the Metropolitan Police have advised people who are stopped by a plainclothes police officer to phone 999 or flag down a passing bus or even run away if they feel they're in real and imminent danger and they're concerned that the police officer isn't a real police officer. But what does the law say about that? Kate Becks, QC, is a criminal barrister from Red Lion Chambers in London. Kate, do bus drivers have the legal power to arbitrate in a dispute between the police and a citizen? Good evening. Good evening.
Do bus drivers have a legal power to arbitrate? I think the answer to that's almost certainly no. And I can see the point of the question and the difficulty that it may be perceived that this is shifting responsibility onto third parties who are in an impossible position. But I think I understand the criticism of the advice, but I think the point that's being made is probably simpler, which is just if you can, and that's a really big if you can, just do whatever you can to try to get help. But I think it's all in danger of missing the point, which is this is not about getting lone females to modify their behaviour. This is about, or ought to be about, addressing the reasons why lone females feel unsafe and are unsafe.
So let's just look at the strict legal position, if we could. And I realise that's moving slightly away from the underlying intention behind the advice, which is keeping everybody safe on the streets. But I want to distinguish the situation where someone's been arrested from the situation where a police officer has just stopped someone in the street. And assuming it's a real police officer, as indeed it was with Sarah Everard, if someone's been arrested, are they committing any offence by running away?
Well, I think where you have to be really careful with using the Wayne Couzens example is that, yes, he was a real police officer, but he wasn't acting in the execution of his duty. So he wasn't acting lawfully. And so, yes, in that situation, and again, I stress it's a really big if, because I think we all need to be really careful not to say anything that might be construed as suggesting that this is in any way a lone female's fault or responsibility, because it absolutely isn't. If you were purported to be arrested by somebody who is a serving police officer but is not acting in the execution of their duty, you would be perfectly entitled to use reasonable force to get away, to act in lawful self-defence to get away. So that's a real police officer, but one who's not acting in the execution of their duty, as Couzens was not.
I think the issue with the Metropolitan Police's advice, or certainly the issue that I have with it, is, and I understand the intentions behind it, is that it suggests that somebody is entitled to run away if they're genuinely scared. But does that run into problems when the police officer is a real police officer in the working in the execution of their duties, and the individual is just mistaken?
So I think if it is a real police officer acting in the execution of their duty, I think if you are genuinely afraid of a real and imminent threat, I think it would be unlikely, if you were to run away, unlikely that you would then be successfully prosecuted for willful obstruction. Knowing that I was coming on this evening, I did a bit of a trawl through the recent case law, and the fact that this issue is still litigated in the Court of Appeal gives an indication of the fact that it's not exactly clear-cut, it's not black and white. So it continues to create appellate law. So it's really difficult, but if you are genuinely fearful, and that's what it would come down to, whether it's a genuine fear, if you're genuinely fearful, I would hate anybody to take away from this the idea that even if you are genuinely fearful, and I stress the genuine, this is not a sort of get out of jail free card for criminals if they've been up to no good and they're just going to suddenly try and ride on this coattails. If you're a lone female, you're genuinely fearful. I would hate for somebody to be standing there in the street thinking, oh, well, God, I can't remember what Kate Beck said. I'm not sure whether I should or shouldn't run. I would hope then that you would just run, and that if you had a genuine fear, that would all be taken into account when dealing with it afterwards.
Kate, thank you. We're getting a lot of texts in on this, actually, and I just want to read you one and ask you this question. It's from Chris. I don't know whether Chris is male or female, but Chris texts, if a lady tries to run away from a police officer, won't she get tasered?
If a police officer is subject to the requirements to act reasonably. So picture the scene. In the current climate, particularly, a police officer justifying the use of a taser on a lone female who's running away with a genuine fear. I would like to think, and I appreciate that what I might like to think and the reality may be two different things, but I would like to think that police officer would have more judgment than to taser a lone female fleeing from a male police officer. People have got to have an awareness, and lots of people I speak to do. There are lots of really good police officers out there who do have an awareness and are saying to people, tell us what will make you feel safer. What can I do? So, are standing back, asking for backup audibly so you can hear. All sorts of things that show an awareness of the difficulty. So I really hope that the prospect of a male police officer stopping a lone female and then when she flees, screaming, help, help, he tasers her in the back. I would like to think that is extremely unlikely.
Thank you, Kate. Excellent advice there from Kate Becks, QC of Red Lion Chambers. Kate is a good friend of the LBC Legal Hour. And it's a real problem because the fundamental issue, and we are getting a lot of texts in on this, is how are people who are stopped, particularly at night, supposed to know whether somebody is a real police officer and whether they're acting in the execution of their duties or not?